Michael and Christian were cleaners, but not in the usual way, dusting and hovering, but in the way of cleaning towns of useless people, the people who didn't make a difference or contribute in any way. My name is Shannon, and unfortunately, Amanda can't be with us today, but we both welcome you to a world of bookish adventures. Today, I am so excited to share that we have indie author Deborah Fox with us. Her new release, Secondhand Rose, is a horror thriller story that takes place in the small fictional town of Friendship. Small town secrets, mysterious disappearances, and gruesome deaths are just some of the challenges that our main protagonist, Abigail, must face as she tries to uncover the truth. Woo! Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Ooh, I get chills. I get chills. I think about that blurb of yours. So I am so thrilled to have you a part of our show today and hear all about your new book, Secondhand Rose.
Okay.
So I think why don't we just start at the beginning and can you share with our listeners where did the inspiration for this book come from? You know, that small town of Friendship. Where did the story start to bubble for you?
Okay. So in February 2019, my dog passed away, Jake. And unfortunately, I didn't cope very well with his passing. Had a breakdown, wasn't good to be around. Had too much time on my hands. So I decided I needed to do something to use that time, something productive. So this book was that productiveness, I suppose, stopped me from my anxiety. And I decided that a horror story was the best way to go. I don't know why. But I thought
that's amazing. So you really utilize, and first of all, I'm so sorry for your dog's passing. I can't imagine that is such a hard thing, and any pet lover can
yes.
definitely empathize with you. And what an amazing process to utilize this creative writing and release to help get, now I don't want to use the word get over because I don't know if we never get over, but
Yes.
how to recover, maybe that's a better word, how to recover
And
from the loss and the grief that you were experiencing.
Yes. Yeah. So I decided that that was maybe the best way of grieving was to actually put him in the book, to make him one of the main characters, to celebrate his quirkiness. So everything in the book is him. It's not a different character, it's him. And that really helped me. It helped me grieve and it helped me deal with his loss. So it was definitely good therapy.
Yes, that's incredible. And Deborah, Amanda and I, we have spoken to many authors. We've had the privilege of speaking to many authors, and this is definitely a new path that I've learned, and I think it's incredible and something that our listeners maybe should really take heart, that when we are going through a process of grief or struggling or things like that, to find these creative outlets to help us through it can do such a wonderful thing. And as a byproduct, you created an amazing book. So,
Yeah. And his legacy lives on because everybody that reads this book will read about Jake. So he will keep going and going. So
yes, yeah, I think that's
I couldn't have
great.
funded him any better.
And just to share with our listeners, I was not an ARC reader for Deborah, but I was a reviewer for her after the fact. And so I have had the privilege of already reading her book and already doing reviews. So I am so thrilled to have you with us, also on a personal level, because I was one of your reviewers. So I think it's
Yes.
great that you're with us.
Yes.
So why don't you give, I know I gave a small little blurb about Secondhand Rose, but is there anything you want to add to it to let our listeners know about what they can expect from your book?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of horror and quite a bit of gruesome deaths. So far, nobody has guessed the twist. So I offer that out to anyone if they want to try and guess the twist.
Okay, and just to add, folks, I did not guess the twist. So I am definitely, and I'm generally pretty good at those things, and I did not guess the twist. So yes, I would love to hear if somebody did guess it.
Oh
That would
yeah,
be
me
great.
too.
Yeah.
Me too, because so many people don't see it coming. So I'm looking forward to the day that somebody tells me that they do. That's a challenge.
It absolutely is. So there are, several characters in this story. I know you shared, you put your dog Jake in there to have him live on and incorporate. But are there any other characters in the story that you just really connected with?
Well, Abigail is also a real person. She is one of our closest friends, one of the toughest people that I've ever met. So when I was deciding which characters were going to go into the book, I asked her if I could use her, which is quite funny because she hasn't read it because she doesn't like horror. So it's quite funny that she is my heroine and will never read it.
And I found it interesting, Abigail. I kind of likened it almost, and I'm just going to preface this almost, so don't get mad at me, Deborah, but almost like one of those when we think of a Hallmark movie, the girl who escapes the small town, who becomes a big success, but then because of a different circumstances, ends up moving back. Now, she doesn't move back for love. I'm just going to throw it out there. She
Yes.
doesn't move back for love, but due to a twist of circumstances, she moves back, and then all of these experiences start to happen that she needs to deal with. So,
Yes.
did you kind of go into that purposefully, like you wanted her to kind of almost be like returning to her roots in a way?
Yeah, I think because her grandmother passes away and leaves her this beautiful house and this antique shop that she literally spent her childhood in. And then when she leaves town to become this big city reporter, that's her dream. She wants to be a reporter. So she leaves to do that. But then Rose passes away and she has to come back because she loved the antique shop. She loved the house. She loved the town of friendship. She didn't leave because she was unhappy. She left because she wanted to pursue her dream of being a reporter. So I think that she'd tried that life for 10 years. She'd been this reporter in this town of Everett. And then she comes back, but then she ends up being a reporter in her own way because all these things start happening in friendship and she has to try and get to the bottom of that. And the fact that she's a journalist really helps her find out that truth and find out that story and why all this is happening. So it's sort of, she's still a reporter, but not in this city anymore, in this small town. So I wanted that story to carry on, that she puts a thinking cap on and solves this mystery.
And I love it. I was looking, I was going through some of your Goodreads reviews, and Cindy, who gave you 5 stars, I loved the title of her review. She said, "Friendships not all that friendly." And it just made me laugh. Of like, yep, that pretty much, be careful of what they call themselves. And then a lot of the reviews shared that they felt your book was very much like a novella. And was that also your purpose? You wanted something kind of intense but short that a reader could enjoy, let's say on a rainy day, or kind of cuddled up in the afternoon. Was that kind of your intent, that you wanted to go for this book?
No, because I'm not a writer and I wasn't a writer. I only wrote this really because of Jake passing. When I started writing it, I thought I'm going to give it to my mum as a Christmas present. And that's the only thing that I'm going to do with it. It's never going to see the light of day. It's just for my mum because obviously my mum was also grieving. So I thought it'd be nice to give her this Christmas present, this story that I've written about Jake and this town. And so I never really thought about the size of it. It was just the story that I had in my head and I just got it down. I didn't think of it being a novello. I'd never even heard of the word novello until we started hunting for a publisher. So it wasn't purposeful that it was a short story. It was just a story to help me grieve, and I'll wrap it up at Christmas and give it to my mum. And that was it. That's how it ended.
And then, so then what was the next bridge? So, you wrote the story, you gave it to mom, kind of keep it in house. But what happened? What was the catalyst to make that next step to decide, you know what, I want to make this available throughout the book community?
Well, I was 50 last June. So I decided that being as I was 50, I would see if it was any good, see if it was a good story, because my mum loved it. But she's going to say that she's my mum. She's not going to say it's rubbish. You know what I mean? So I thought I'll see if there's a publisher out there that would take it or would give me some feedback of how I could make it better. So my partner, Paul, went through 100 publishers and he found ones that didn't take words under a certain count. They didn't take the genre. They weren't taking submissions at all. And he was left with one after all this hunting. So we sent it to the one, which was Blossom Spring. And a few weeks later, I got the greatest email that I've ever had in my life. Took me about 5 attempts to read it through tears. So every time he had to read it to people, because I'd be very choked up and very emotional. And they told me that it was an original story. They loved it, that they thought that it could be a series, and they wanted to publish it. And so here I am now.
Yes. And then I know, because we are connected on social media, and we support each other on social media. I see that you are very big, and I love this, of going to libraries, of doing book clubs and book readings, and really connecting with the people. Like, you're active on social media, don't get me wrong. You're out there on social media, you're posting, but I also noticed that you have taken the route of really kind of doing a grassroots promotion of your book to get it out there. Again, was that something that kind of organically evolved, or how did you get that idea to do all the different things that you're doing?
Well, we live in a county in England called Yorkshire, and it's quite a big county, and there are 130 libraries. So we contacted all of them. And at first it was just about putting posters up and just letting people know that I'm a local author. I'd love it if you could help me by putting a poster up so that your library visitors can see that I've wrote a book. But then one of them contacted me and said, would you like to do a book talk? Unfortunately, because I suffer with anxiety about speaking in front of people, I literally had a panic attack. Thought, I can't do this. I can't stand in front of people and talk about my book. This is daft. So we went to the first one. We got to the library and my partner had to stop me 2 or 3 times walking out. I was panicking. I thought, I can't do this. I can't stand in front of these people and read my book. Because on the book talks, I read a chapter, the first chapter, and then I open the room for any questions that people have. But because I know this book off by heart, I could probably read it without looking at the book, if I'm honest. As soon as I started reading that first chapter, I thought, this is great. I'm loving this.
I think
Yeah.
it's fantastic. And because I know so many indie authors are looking for ways to get their books out there. And obviously,
Yes.
TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all of these social media platforms are wonderful.
Yeah.
But I just love this idea of you're with your, potential readers. Now, do you give them options to like buy the book while they're there?
Yeah, I take some with me, which I've bought beforehand, and then I sell them on the day. So I give them the option that I can sign them as well, which is also so lovely. And every single person that has bought a book at the library has asked me to sign it. And it's just so nice for me to sign it and personalize that book, that I know that that's going, and they're not going to sell it. They're not going to get rid of it because it's now got my name in there and theirs. And it's just so nice. It's just such a lovely feeling.
Amazing. So you had kind of possibly dropped a little bit of a clue that your publisher had talked about that this could be a series. So
Yes.
is Secondhand Rose going to be a series?
Yeah, I have a sequel in my head, which I've sort of pushed to the back of my brain until this next one comes out, because the next book that's coming out has got nothing to do with it. So I've sort of filed that ready for me doing the sequel, and then there will be a prequel as well. I think that the two baddies in the book need a book of their own.
I definitely agree. I would love a prequel. I mean, you give us a little bit of knowledge of what happened before Abigail comes back to friendship, and but not I know I like to dive in. I want to like know what my characters eat for breakfast, what their favorite color is. Like I like to know all those things. So I think a prequel to Secondhand Rose would be amazing.
Yeah, my worries for that is I know what Michael and Christian would want to eat for breakfast. So that slightly worries me.
So, Deborah, you shared with us kind of how Secondhand Rose came to be, and it was a book born from grief. But now that you're looking at, and you said you're writing other books, and you're going to do more with Secondhand Rose. How is your writing process developing now that this is becoming a purposeful thing as opposed to a healing endeavor?
The second book that I've just finished is so more in depth. There's more character building. The scenes are more in depth. I'm describing more. I feel like I've learned so much over the last year. And if I wrote Secondhand Rose again now, it would be completely different. This book is so funny, and I have literally had a whale of a time writing it. I have so enjoyed writing it that I didn't want it to finish. But I feel that as a writer, I've found as a person, I've found what I should be doing, and that is writing, because I really, really enjoy it. And it also, not only enjoying it, but also helps my anxiety, and just gives me more focus. I really enjoy it.
And I think that's fantastic. Also, I mean, you shared earlier in the podcast, your age, or, you're a Gen Xer, you're in that part of your life. But I think it's fantastic to have everybody remind it's never too late,
No,
regardless, you're 12 or you're 72. If you have that story, you have that idea, you have that passion, don't let that number on the calendar stop you from following that passion.
oh, definitely not. Even if it's not writing, it's something else. Just do it. Mine and my partner's life has completely changed. I work in a warehouse full time. I move pallets, I open boxes. I've got a really physical job, which doesn't take a lot of mental ability. But this writing keeps my brain occupied as well. and I'd love to do it full time. I'd love to be able to leave the warehouse. At the moment, I'm doing both.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And just to throw it out you, I have a fellow indie author who I really love. I've been an ARC reader for her and stuff. And what she did was she wrote a first series of books and then she wrote a second series of books. And the second series was kind of like you shared. She grew, she developed, she learned so many new things. So
Yes.
she's actually going back and rewriting her
Oh,
first
really?
series
Right.
using everything that she learned in the
Yeah.
second series. She's kind of like, making it like the new edition type of thing. So
Yes.
maybe that might be something on your plate,
Yeah.
using all of these things, going back and giving us a second iteration of Secondhand Rose, adding all those other elements to it.
Definitely. And I think the feedback from reviews has really helped as well. Even though some of the reviews have been very negative, I've twisted that round to be a positive, because those negative images, those negative views help you grow. And it's all feedback, good or bad, it's feedback. And you can only get better by knowing what people really think. If everybody tells you it's amazing all the time, and it's not, then you're going to start making mistakes in your next book that you've also made in your first, and you're never going to learn from it or grow. So that's a really good thing to get, even the negative reviews and the negative comments, because you can use them in your next book and make sure that you don't keep making the same mistakes. So I like that idea. Maybe.
No, it's interesting that you say that. And I know, in we have well, you're in it. We have a Arc Dragons Facebook group where we
Yes.
connect authors and reviewers, and we have a lot of conversations. And this actual topic was brought up the other day of how do you do these negative reviews? And I was looking at some of the reviews that you were talking about. But you know what I noticed, Deborah? The negative review, and like I said, I don't like the word negative, but the criticism reviews that you have received are not about your book, are not about your storyline. They're actually people who want more. I want
Yes.
more to know about the character. I
Yes.
want more about the town. So even though they are, on a criticism level, it's a criticism of people who want more from you. And in a way, I think that's kind of cool that you've created this world, this community, this small town of friendship, and people are saying, give us more. We
Yes.
want more.
Yes.
So I love that. I think that's great for you. Even if it kind of comes off in a constructive criticism way, it's a way of saying, give us more. So I think
Yes.
that's brilliant.
And that's the reason why Blossom Spring said we'd like a series, because I've left it open enough to not give everybody everything all at once. There is room for me to grow the characters. There is room for me to go backwards and talk about the baddies a bit more. And I think that's great. And that I think that's what they want. And that's what they also, when they read it, that's what they thought. We can actually do a lot more with this. There is
Yes.
room for more stories. So yeah, watch this space.
Yeah, I think it's great. So, Deborah, I always like to ask when we have our interviews with our awesome authors, do you have any advice for our listeners who are out there that maybe they're kind of bubbling, they want to start writing a book, but they don't know where to start? So, any advice for our new authors?
Oh, when I write, I always write the end first. So people have told me that the ending is always the hardest to finish a book. And bizarrely, before I was even told that, that's how I do it. That's how I've done this new one. So try and think of your end before you start thinking about your beginning. Also, characters. I have, probably rightly or wrongly this time, everybody that supported me with book number 1 is now in book number 2. So all my friends and family are all being used. So work on what you know rather than trying to make everything up. So if you've got friends and family, ask them if you can use their names, maybe not their characters, but their names, so that you've got a start. And also your story, what genre you're going to be picking. If you're uncomfortable with horror, then go for something that you are more comfortable with. So maybe a romantic or a crime. Don't go out of your comfort zone. Try and use what you know. And also, I suppose, is try and write down as much as you can before you start actually typing it. So if you have an idea, get it on paper, keep adding to it. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I've had an idea, so I go and write it down, or I come down here and start typing. I don't let it go out of my brain. I always try and get it written down somewhere, because in the morning you might have forgotten it. So always try to think about the story, and no matter what time it comes to you, get it somewhere, get it down somewhere, and then you can keep building on it. But definitely go for it. If you want to be a writer, go for it, because somebody out there will love it. And I never thought anybody would like Secondhand Rose as much as my mum did. Do you
I
know?
think it's, yeah, no, brilliant. I think that's brilliant, brilliant advice. So, how can our listeners find you? What are your social media sites?
Okay, so Facebook is just Deborah Fox -author. Twitter X is at DebMac730. Instagram at Deborah9553. Threads is Deborah9553. And TikTok is at Deborah.fox5. I do have, my book is also listed on Indie Book Vault, All Author, and the Curious Bookshelf. So there is quite a lot of places where you can actually find me and my book together.
And for those of you that are listening to this and watching this on YouTube, you're seeing all of her social media sites there. So you could take a picture, write them down. Those on Spotify, we recommend hopping over to our YouTube to see that. We'll also share Deborah's sites on our social media pages as well. And then for the book, if our authors want to dive into this world of friendship, where can they find your book?
So Amazon, Kobo, Goodreads, and Barnes and Noble.
Excellent. So, Deborah, I am so excited to have you on today. We have kind of been supporting each other for a while, so it's thrilling to have you here. And I got to throw out, when your new book, when you're ready for release, let us know. We'll do a big release party. We'll be part of your release group.
Lovely.
And we'll share your upcoming release with Oliver. Do you have a time frame for that? A time frame when you think that's going to be ready, or is it still too early?
Well, it's completely finished. I've been editing it just to make sure it's coherent, because I haven't actually read it from start to finish. I've only read the tiny bits that I've been writing. So I'm just finishing that. I'm up to chapter 20 of my edits, and there's 28 chapters. A friend of mine read Secondhand Rose the first time before I even gave it to my mum, and gave me lots of pointers. So she has asked if she could do that again this time before I send it to my publisher. So I'm hoping that sometime in April I will pluck up enough courage to send it to my publisher and see what they think.
Okay, so we could be looking at like a late spring, early summertime release.
Yeah, hopefully,
Okay.
if they go for it, then yes. If not, my partner will have the lovely job of finding another publisher.
Well, definitely keep us in the loop on that so we can share that with everybody. Well, Deborah, thank you so much for being with us today, for being a part of our podcast. We're so thrilled to be a part of your adventure, and thank you for all of your sharing today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it, Shannon. It was lovely to talk to you.
And thank you all as well for being with us today. Next week, we will be talking with Anna from Aratu, which is a book reading application, something a little different for you guys. So until then, read more books and go explore. Bye, everybody.